even like introed the idea to him, he was like, what'd he say? He was like,
there's a few people who said, I don't think he ever said, he's like, who's gonna wear a Siegelman Stables? I was like, I don't know, future.
We are here in New York City. We flew all the way across the country to have our first repeat guest, Mr. Max Siegelman of Siegelman Stables. Over the course of this last year, the brand has blown up within the $185 billion streetwear industry. We've seen Post Malone, Future, multiple NBA players, athletes, musicians, and artists wear the line. It's also been featured in major media outlets such as Billboard and Complex. We wanted to speak with Max because we really admire how he's built his network in music, fashion, and sports, having worked over 8 years as a creative and social media consultant. At the start of the pandemic, he thought about how he could reconnect his roots and his family business, horse racing, but make it fashion.
My dad's been ready since he woke up this morning. Like texted my brother and I. He's like, feels like game day.
That's cute. He's probably all excited to see it come to life.
Yeah.
And what does he? Yeah. What does he think now?
Most of the time, I think he thinks it's super cool. Not that everyone thinks it's not cool, but I think he thinks it's like. I think sometimes he's like, I don't know, just like I don't like throw the hands up, like I don't know how or like why. Mm-hmm. But he's definitely with it now. He's into it. He like thinks he's like when him and my mom are like talking about it, he's like cover guy, you know, like joking around. I mean, they're hilarious together. But
this was still when that's what's on the mannequin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is when he still drove in races. So once he had my brother, so that's the jockey from the race. He's in his colors because he still warmed up the horses.
Wow.
So once they had my brother, who was 4 years older than me, he stopped racing in races because it's very dangerous. And he didn't want to do that.
When we first had the conversation with you, you recognized that the timing was right. Yeah. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because many people saw during the pandemic, just like many brands kind of later get onto this time, right? Like the culture. And I felt like you were very early with that and you recognized it. And what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like obviously the pandemic's still going on, but things are a lot better. And like, so people still, like in the beginning, everybody wanted to get out of the city. People are trying to come back, but I think there's still like that like outdoorsy vibe that like people still want to be like a part of. So like when I did start it, I was like in the beginning, it was like the time was perfect because no one wanted to be in the city. Everyone wanted to be outdoors. And it was just like, it just felt to me like the right time to do it.
Your ability to recognize that the time was right is a skill that I think is really valuable in life in terms of like pattern recognition and paying attention to how consumers and how people connect to things. What are tactical things that you do to practice harnessing that skill?
I like the use of harness in that question.
You like that? It was
good. You plugged it. I mean, I think like even before I started even thinking about doing this, like a lot of what I did, whether it was making me money or just like helping friends or whatever, it was just like connecting the dots, like whether it's the right brand to the right person and the right person to the right person. So I think in this instance, it was more of like what I had already because we were all stuck at home and like what I could do with it. And then the opportunity of time. So like not traveling as much, being able to build a website out, build the back end out and basically just be able to do everything from home. Like I would have never had the time to do this ever. Like it wasn't even a thought unless I was stuck at home and not traveling as much for work. So
what do you think are characteristics for a person who's great at connecting the dots? How do they craft that in their life?
Yeah, I think it's tough to like stuff to put on your resume that like you're a professional dot connector. Like it's more of just like you need to be in the right position and given the right opportunities to connect people. And I think like we talked about last time, like I've been put in luckily good opportunities to meet right people. But you also need to know how to use your resources, people included, to connect with the right people, other people or brands or just things in general. to have something come to life. Otherwise, you're going to miss it. I think like early on, like I knew I was able to do it and I knew I could do it well. And I think the biggest struggle for me in the beginning was like, how do I do all that? But how do I also make that a job? Like, how do I make money off of that? So I've definitely been screwed out of a bunch of deals that whether they're still going on or it was a big hit and they got a ton of press and it was super successful and I was a part of it, but I was too naive or just didn't have enough experience where I knew that I needed to have it on paper or just anything like that. So I think that it's two separate things. I think it's like knowing your worth and your value and the value of being able to do it, and then also figuring out that you can do it and that you have the resources and how to use them.
Like what were things that maybe you set up, like systems that you set up to help make sure that those things were part of something that you could actually be involved in? Because I think sometimes people go from like, okay, I realize that I'm in a situation in which I feel screwed over, but I need new systems. So what did you do differently?
One's having the confidence to say it, which I still sometimes I think I struggle with. I need to be in on this level to be able to do it. And I mean, still, like I still connect people and like I don't think about like how I'm going to get something out of it, which is wrong and right. It depends like the situation. And then I think the other part of it is just like having the over communication with all the people, like communication to me, and like goes back to even like college soccer. Like as a goalie, like the number one thing is communication, because as soon as like communication is broken down, there's mistake after mistake, and then they're coming at you, and you're the last man there in front of the goal. So I think like communication for me is like I'm definitely on my phone too much, but it's like being connected with all these people, whether it's DMing them, responding to Instagram stories, hitting them with a text if you know that something's coming up. Like you kind of just have to have like your pulse on like what they're doing. Like you don't want, not in a stalkerish way, but like know what they're doing and like know the resources that you have that, oh, maybe this could help them, or maybe I could connect you with this person and that could bring some positivity or something new to it.
Do you notice when you bring out the product that it surprises you? Some of the things that you think hit?
Yeah, like, well, I didn't know, like I was never a two-tone hat person. And then the white and green one kind of like took off. We had a few like fashion-y influencers, not like horsey people or streetwear people wear it. And they probably sold a ton for us just through their posts. And then the OG 3 colorways, and then the black on black for only the second time ever was definitely a crowd favorite. So decided to bring it out.
The first time we spoke and the audience was introduced to you, the line had not even launched yet.
Yeah.
You know, there was no collection available for people to purchase. And we've now seen just a very diverse, just wild, like the amount of people that have kind of worn the line, and we've seen it in kind of pop culture in this way. If someone says, how did you do that? Because I know it will be a question that will be asked. What would you share your experience has been?
Wait for your right moment to ask for favors. That's definitely part of it. Don't just do something for someone and expect to get something in return a day after or that year or 5 years. Like wait on it. And also just take a chance. Like I spent $200 to start this to make hats because I wanted a hat with Siegelman Stable on it. And then just keep investing back in yourself. But also use those connections. It goes back to like connecting the dots, like continue to connect those dots, but do it in the right way.
When we had the first conversation, you were working a full-time job. What has it taught you about, one, people that are building brands outside of working a full-time job?
Still working a full-time job. Yeah. Noted.
Yeah. Which is also like a choice. And I think a lot of media specifically encourages people to like take that leap and jump and like leave their 9 to 5. Yeah. What would you say, having been kind of in both of those parties?
It depends. And like I think I said the first time, like I'm in a great position on my full-time job and where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And the people who work there also like support me, right? Like I'll get on a Zoom and someone's wearing the orange Carrots collab crew neck, and that's someone being like my boss, my direct report, who's like the CMO, right? So like having that support, she wished me good luck this weekend. Like last night she texted me. Not everyone's always in that situation. And I get that, it's tough. So you gotta like feel out your situation, definitely. And then for me, having a support system outside of that to help you with stuff you're not good at is definitely helpful.
What were some of the first things that you realized that you weren't good at?
Just like, even like in the setup, like setting up Shopify, setting up the website, graphic design. Like I'm good at saying ideas out loud or drawing them on a whiteboard. And then once it's in motion, I can jump in and continue, but I need like a jump start and help from that. But I've known that from the beginning, and that's why I brought in people in like left and right, here and there to help me with certain parts of it.
Support is something that I hear you mention. And what does it mean for people that are starting anything? Like, how do they make sure that they have tools and people in their corner to help make it come to life?
Yeah, man, I think it's also knowing like what you're good at and not thinking that you have to do everything yourself. I definitely don't know how to do everything myself, and you shouldn't expect that you need to be able to do that. But always have had support, whether it's my parents or my brother or friends, family, etc. Just don't be afraid to ask for it. I think is the biggest thing. I think a lot of people get caught up, and not necessarily ego, but part of it is ego. And it's like, I want to do everything on my own. But at some point, you just can't. I mean, I'm here washing windows, but like, it's therapy for me at this point in the last week, being in here washing the windows 5 times. But certain things I'm not good at, whether it's steaming clothes or creating a graphic or whatever it is, like just need to be able to hand off asks.
You know, oftentimes like people have this, like, I'm a creative or I'm an entrepreneur in this way, but you were already in this space. I feel like as someone that had business acumen, but what has it taught you the most about?
Nothing's going to go perfect. Definitely nothing's going to go perfect. Like stepping into fashion or whatever you want to call it, like leaning on people who have done it before, asking them like, what's going to go wrong? Like production's never going to go perfect. Something's going to go wrong. They're going to send you the wrong color. They're going to print the wrong color, embroider the wrong color, not send you the right number of items, like things like that you don't think of. And then doing this pop-up, it's like 1,000 things I did not think of. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to go into this empty space and make it look really good and sell really good clothes. And I'm just like, I spent 10 hours cleaning this place in the last week. But just expect nothing to go perfect.
What have been some of like the biggest challenges for you personally this year in growing the brand?
I just stress about everything. So even before this, I stress about getting to the airport on time for a flight. I stress about being everywhere on time. Like I just stress about everything. So to put pressure on myself for like every little thing that goes into this, it's just like added stress. And at some point you need to just know that like it's gonna go how it's gonna go, and you're gonna do what you can do, and you don't have power over anything else. So I'm definitely stressed about tonight, but like at this point I feel like I've done everything I have to do. So stress less, keep running. Therapy.
You still are doing your 5 a.m. runs, or do you notice
not
now
as
that
early. I don't get up as early because I mean, I'm not going to an office, so I definitely don't get up as early. 6, push it back an hour.
Good. So how did this kind of come about in this specific line, and what's the vision with it here?
Yeah, so I felt like with the going off like the Carrots collab, and that was going after like knowing what audience you're going after, which is more of like the streetwear hype beast. I felt like I now have a decent amount of audience in that realm, and now I could bring some of like the authentic, more traditional like horse racing to it, so those people can see it. So for this, like the Hambletonian is the biggest harness race in the country. That's next weekend, and they reached out to me just in general about marketing and like just a few questions, and we ended up just talking that we wanted to do a collab. We didn't talk about the pop-up. We just wanted to create a collection together to promote Siegelman Stable and also help promote the Hambletonian to a new audience for them. And then we ended up deciding that a pop-up in Brooklyn would be definitely a different audience for them, and a good opportunity for just me in general to have people come in the store, feel the stuff, be able to see it, and buy it here. So the t-shirt, we use the Hambletonian Society, the race next week. We use their logo on the front, and it's the 96th year that they're doing it, which is the 96. And then the back is, we kind of rearranged what they've done in the past. So the whole collection for the Hambletonian, we based off a vintage hat we found on Etsy from 1997, and the colors were khaki, white, green, and navy. So we took that look and we basically just restyled it. These are all the past winners from the last 95 races. So going all the way back to 1926, and last year's winner, Ramona Hill, and then we just put our new look up top.
When you are working with different brands and collaborating with them, how do you, for somebody else who's thinking about, oh, this is a strategy that I can maybe adopt, how do you keep it streamlined with what's honest to you while still serving that other brand's audience?
You have to have like somewhat of a good relationship with the person that, or the brand that you're going to do it with. Because if you don't have kind of like the same vision, it's never going to work. Like Anwar Carrots and I have been talking for almost since my first drop, because Aurora Anthony, who did my first shoot, showed up wearing all carrots, and it's just repeated carrots on his sweatshirt and his sweatpants. And my dad, he got out of the car, my dad made a joke. He's like, don't get too close to the horses. And we told Anwar that, and Anwar was like, yo, we got to do something. And like, we just stayed in touch for a while. And again, it goes back to like staying in communication with him, like going back on text and on DM and like responding to each other's like Instagram story posts and all that stuff. So like you build this rapport with each other and this like kind of relationship that you want to be doing something with them, or you want to collaborate with them.
I think, you're someone with vision. What are things that you're curious about right now? Things that you're interested in, and yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Shoot. I think I'm just like trying to educate myself more on like just fashion in general. Definitely, I understand that what I make right now is not the most environmentally friendly thing in the world. I know that fashion definitely plays a role in not being the most environmentally friendly industry. So definitely like to try and figure out ways to improve what I'm doing for that. Obviously we do a lot of good. We give a lot of our money that we make, we give back to equine therapy programs, but just figuring out different avenues that we can continue to do good as we continue to build.
I like that you acknowledge that and said it. This is interesting.
Oh,
this is interesting.
I said starting to educate, so don't try and stump me.
No, because I think that in order for there to be growth in anything, it starts with an awareness and a curiosity. It doesn't mean you know all of the answers, but that has to be there first.
Yeah. What?
But, yeah. I was waiting for it. What do you feel about it?
Well, she's like big on it. I mean, everything she does is around like giving back to the earth. So like her own brand is super environmentally friendly, like hand makes everything with wool. Like will yell at me when I go to a coffee shop and don't bring my own cup. That's what I live with now.
Well, this is why I find it interesting, is because it doesn't have to be binary in this way. This is interesting to have people that come into your life that are passionate about the environment and the climate and the materials, and that there is a bridge in a conversation in which you both can start to like weave and integrate some of the philosophies in a way that works for you. But I also think that we do live in a culture sometimes that's very binary, where it's like this is either sustainable and or not. And so it's nice to see that somebody that started out in a place can have a curiosity to transition.
Yeah.
And why do you think that that's important for you to do?
For a few reasons.
Yeah,
I mean,
for you
like
personally.
We live here, right? Like we live on this earth, so like everything we do every day affects it, mostly negatively, if we're honest. Like when you walk outside, anything you do, you throw something out, you start the car, whatever it is. My girlfriend obviously plays a role in that. So like everything that we either buy or bring our own bags to the grocery store, like every little thing is gonna make a difference. So again, like I'm just starting, I always recognized it, but I never thought about it when I first started Siegelman Stable and just started like producing hats and printing t-shirts. Like I didn't think about who I was getting blanks from or anything like that. So I think I'm definitely not doing my best at it. But I think as long as you start to try and start to care a little bit, like at least you're trying to make an effort, and I'll get there. I think there are brands that have existed forever and are huge and everyone knows their name. They're doing nothing about it, right? So like if I can start it now, it'd be easier for me wherever this ends up going.
One of the things that I think is important, and one of the things we'll see here today, is that you're fostering community and finding a way to bring people together. Can you kind of speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I think like when I set out and I was like, all right, I'm going to sell hats to more than just like my friends and family, and started selling them online and all that, I always said that a portion of the proceeds would go to equine therapy or programs for inner city kids. And when we did our first drop, I did 100% of proceeds shirt for the Fletcher Street Urban Riding Club. So tomorrow in the shop, we'll have 2 equine therapy horses from Horseability, which my dad volunteers like 90% of his time now doing equine therapy at. So we'll have them in the shop. People can like experience like interacting with 2 mini therapy horses. Like these horses get in the back of a minivan. Literally, they get in the back of a minivan, and they go to hospitals. They go to nursing homes, and it just like brings joy to people, right? So I think you asked me this, our first podcast was like, what is equine therapy like defined, right? And like, I still don't know, right? But I think it's just like the interaction and like the joy and not thinking about anything else that's going on in your world outside of just the interaction with the animal is equine therapy. Like my dad had a funeral this morning he had to go to, and he called me on the way back and he's like, I'm just going to do some equine therapy for myself, right? Like he's just going to the farm to like, so it's like, it just brings joy to you in that time. And whether it's for the 2 minutes you're with it or for the next 3 hours and you're thinking of it or whatever it is, you're just forgetting about everything else that's going on. So my definition still is not in the encyclopedia.
You know, we always reference here like the group. People listening to this episode have listened to both your episode and Caleb's as well. Can you just talk to what that has been in your life since?
Your girls, your guys.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, Caleb and I have connected. Like he listened to my podcast, I listened to his through you. And again, like we've just been hitting each other back and forth, and like finally got to meet each other a few months back, and like still in touch. So everything that I'm doing with Siegelman Stable, everything he's doing with NCIS LA, Wu-Tang, everything he's involved with, whether it's just like hitting each other back, like motivating each other, responding to something. I become close with his sisters. So it's like, it's kind of like a little MG Method family we got going on.
Yeah, and all his buddies, they're always wearing Siegelman Stable
all of them.
and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better promoter than Caleb, and he pushes it hard.
Yeah, and I think maybe you can speak to this because I think that you're someone that's a good living example of this. Siegelman Stable, I think a lot of brands now really try to put efforts in diversifying who's a part of their community. Yeah. But it seems like for you keep a diverse group of people in your life.
Yeah.
Why do you do that, and how do you kind of foster those relationships for you personally?
So I think to me, it's just like, that's what my life's been. Like I grew up in New York, which is like the melting pot. You don't see differences like that. So for me, it wasn't a, why am I doing this? I think back on some of it now, and it's like, good that I did that, right? Yeah. But even just look back to this last shoot in Thai that I had do it. He has been pushing, he's like a marathon runner, huge fitness guy, and he has his own brand around cannabis and working out and cannabis and running. And he's been pushing that for as long as I've known him. So like 7-8 years, he's been pushing that. And I think now what we saw with the Olympics and disqualifying a sprinter for failing a drug test, like these conversations should have already happened, but now they're happening. So things that he was talking about already are now brought to the forefront, and he's continuing that conversation. So I had this image in my head for like months, and I get laughed at, like months of, there's this old picture of this white guy at the track, like lighting up a cigar with a red hat on that like didn't have a Siegelman Stable logo on it, but literally the same like model of a hat. And it just like looked so cool and vintage. And I've had this image in my head of Ty lighting a blunt at the track, and like bringing a new look and like a new wave to it, right? So I didn't tell him that until after the shoot, and after that, like that was one of the best photos, and that's what's being used in like a lot of the press pieces. But I hit him after it got posted in Complex. That's the image they use, and I was like, dude, this is why I did this. I was like, what you've been doing for the last like 8 years is finally like a media conversation that's happening now, and that we can use it for this brand that we always say that we want to give back to different communities in different ways. It just made sense. And like people don't see all of that story like in just that one image. They're like, oh cool, this cool looking dude with red braids is like smoking a blunt at the racetrack. But like that's the story, and like that's why I did it, and that just brought a whole like different look. Even if it's just for Ty, or now it's for whoever's listening to this, but like even if it's just for Ty, like it motivates him to continue to do what he's doing, because like whether you see it as a positive movement or a negative movement, he's not stopping, and it is a conversation that's happening now and needs to continue.
So for people listening right now that you know, this is probably something that brought you also like joy in being able to share that with him, what would you say that people can do in their life to start to kind of create those moments for themselves in that way? Because I think that there's like an actual practice what you're doing.
I think it's just bring people with you that you've known for a while who are doing things in culture to change culture or to mold culture. Whether they're being noticed or not, if you can try and help them, like I didn't know if it was going to be picked up, but if you can try and help them and bring it, I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah, like I'm sure people gravitate also to the design who don't know anything about the space.
Definitely. I'd say the majority of people that buy it online know nothing about it. We went to MoMA, and the first thing we saw was a guy wearing the Navy Siegelman Stable crew neck. And I was like, that's all the art we need to see. Let's go. Let's get out of here.